Welcome. My name is Mike, and I'm going to show you our favorite family recipe for homemade pizza. First of all, I'd like to introduce to you our oven modification, which, because our oven only goes up to 450 degrees, we had to make a slight modification. And what we did is we took and put a stainless steel washer in front of the stop for the cleaning mode. This enables us to turn the oven to cleaning mode with the oven open and then start the oven using the controls which they provided, and then turn the oven on to the clean mode. But instead of the cleaning mode, we really need about 700 degrees. And we also put a stone in the oven because the stone will keep the oven hot even when the temperature drops down when you open the oven door. So that's important. So we don't put the temperature all the way up to cleaning mode. We're sort of experimenting, and the only way you can really tell is by using a laser guided temperature sensor. It's available for I bought this one for about $50, and it points a laser beam at the stone and it'll tell me the exact temperature. If it's more than 700 degrees, it's a little hot. I like it between 650 and 700 degrees. The next thing I'd like to show you is our ingredients. We used, in this particular recipe, about 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I also like to add a little bit of cornmeal, but it's optional. So I'm just going to put a little bit on top. That kind of gives it some consistency. Then we also we're using a really old DAC bakery oven, which we've got set into the manual mode. And it works fine, but any automated bakery machine will work, or you can do it by hand. I prefer to do it manually in the machine because it's in the manual mode because it's a lot easier. So the first thing we start with is some yeast. You can buy the individual packets. I prefer to buy the bigger bag of them at Smart and Final because they're cheaper, and I don't skimp on it. I'll put in a couple of teaspoons, maybe even a little more. It'll add to the flavor, and it also gets the yeast to rise. So the next thing I add is the dry ingredient is the about 3.5 cups. Could use a little bit more. I might actually put a little bit more of the cornmeal in here to give me that 3.5 cups. And that's about what it looks like. Yeah, it's about 3.5. So I'll put that in there on top of the yeast. So that's it for the dry part of that part. Then what I'll do is you can either use the brown sugar, which is good, at about a tablespoon or two, or I like to use molasses, and I'll just kind of put enough molasses in here to be the equivalent of that. And then a little sprig of salt. That keeps it from going wild. Not much. And I'll use some fried garlic. This is available in the Asian markets here. You can also get the fried shallot, which is like onion. Or you can use fresh garlic or even powdered garlic powder. I'll put a little bit of garlic in there. And then I'll put a little bit of this fried shallot in there. And then the other thing I like to put in is oregano leaves, because it is Italian. And I'll put a big healthy dose of that. I also found this Spice It seasoning, which is pretty good. It's got it's got garlic, crushed red peppers, and other spices, which is really good. But I'll save this for later. And then the next step is to add the liquid ingredients. So I use a a cup instead of a measuring cup all the time. I'll just use a cup like this, which is exactly 1 cup. And what I'll do is I'll put almost about 3/4 of a cup of milk, and I'll put that in there. And then I'll put some hot water, because we have a hot water dispenser, but I'm only going to put 1/2 cup of hot water. So that's about the equivalent of about 1.25 cups of liquid. And it's not cold and it's not hot, not super hot. It's about just right. And then I'm going to put some little bit of olive oil, about a tablespoon of olive oil. That'll keep the pizza nice and moldy, soft for molding later. And then what I'll do is I'll start this in the start menu. Now normally for manual mode this would take about 1.5 hours. I'm going to only run this for about 1 hour because I found that at that point the pizza's already going to start, the dough's already going to start to rise. And that we're going to clear our table here and we're going to get some extra flour here, and I'll show you how to mold the pizza. Meanwhile, when this is done, we're going to turn up the pizza oven so that it's up at the 700-degree mark. One of the tricks you can do too, if you want to make it really authentic, you can take a piece of apple, smoked apple wood, that you can put in a piece of aluminum and put in the back of the oven before you start baking the pizza, and that'll give a little bit of smoky flavor in the pizza, but that's optional, and it kind of smells up the house, so I don't know that I'll do that tonight. So we'll be back in part 2. Thank you.